We are streaming. Hello and welcome to MMOFTW live on MMORPG.com. I'm your co-host Bill Murphy, and with me is my other co-host Robert Graculin Lashley, wearing the beautiful 3D glasses.
Good morning, internets. Now in 3D.
In 3D, but Rob, you're not in 3D. The rest of us are. However, we also have a very special guest with us today. That would be Funcom and the Secret World's game director Joel Bylos. Joel, say hello.
Hello and good morning or afternoon, internets.
And yes, he does look a bit like a koala bear, but that's just his alter ego. What you didn't know is that he's a sentient koala bear, and it's not really the guy you see in all those Funcom End of the World videos. Is that correct?
That's right. Well, I have a body double, and he's not quite as hairy as I am, but he does a good job of it.
I guess your ears are lovely, though.
Thank you. I've been I get them trimmed weekly, so it's a good thing.
They're very nice. They're very nice. Anyway, you guys probably don't want to hear us ramble about Joel's ears forever. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through some of the top news stories of the week, and that would be, well, several. Of course, you have an idea of why Joel's here. One of them is the Tryon layoffs over at Rift. Another one is Guild Wars 2's Winter's Day event. And then we have the Darkfall Unholy Wars delay, which I'm sure a lot of people were upset about. We have the Defiance preview and the first gameplay preview that we saw just this past week. And then we have the megaton bomb that was dropped on us, I think, Thursday, with Asheron's Call 2 being suddenly revived by Turbine with, like, not a moment's notice. And, of course, coming last but certainly not least, we have Funcom's The Secret World has changed its revenue model to a buy-to-play structure. And if we have time, and we're not rambling on too long, we have our community spotlight, which the question of the week is, does voice acting matter in an MMO? Does it make an MMO better? And I'm sure all of us have opinions on that, especially Joel. So, why don't we get started? We'll start off right off the bat with, you see the video playing right now, that is the Rift Storm Legion 2.1 patch trailer. Let's talk about something that's always sad. There were some layoffs this week, were there not?
Yeah,
comments.
you see the video right now? Regulos popping up and smashing things. Well, in this video, Regulos is Tryon, and the things are its employees.
Yeah, it always sucks for the industry, I have to say. Like it's never a good thing when people lose devs, and I mean I know a lot of the Tryon guys. Our the producer for TSW, his brother is one of the lead systems designers at Tryon. On Rift, so we have a lot of sort of friendships and connections with those guys, and it just sucks that they're going through tough times as well.
And you know, I don't think they've actually gone through them before with Rift. I think the game's been pretty steady up until this point when it comes. I don't think I ever heard of layoffs for the Rift team. You know, we just heard about Petroglyph staff having to be laid off because the development was brought in-house, but I don't think we had heard anything about Rift, unless I'm wrong.
Well, wasn't that one of the things they bragged on the first time, was the fact that they kind of ran with a bare bones crew, and they weren't very staff heavy, which is what allowed them to do things faster, they said, because they didn't have so much of a development cycle to run through in-house.
It might have literally been people they hired just for the expansion pack. There wasn't really a press release out there for it.
Could be that as well.
Yeah, could just be project downsizing, of course.
That too. I mean, it is. It happens to everybody. Their game comes out, and the fact that it lasted for over a year before they had to do any major layoffs is kind of surprising, because very few MMOs launch and then don't have some sort of staff downsizing. I mean,
yep.
I don't want to rub salt in a wound, because it happened with Secret World too, you know.
Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting. We talk about this quite a bit at work. The industry really is sort of in a growth phase, always has been, and it's kind of interesting to talk about it more like, you know, a construction company. They take a bid on a building, they finish building the building, and then, you know, they don't keep the laborers fully employed full time.
Yeah,
you know, they give them a contract till the end of that building, and then they move on. And I think you know, movies are the same, and it's strange that games aren't quite there yet in terms of giving people contracts for 3 years to finish a project, and then sort of, you know, people move on.
That would make sense, and honestly, it almost then you have headhunters that are out there saying, well, here's your next project, and here's your next project, and
yeah, exactly. And there's a bit more of an expectation for people to remain fully employed for a long time with a single company.
I think
I think a lot of that has to do with unions in the workplace as well, though. I mean, a lot of these things that you're talking about have different unions that represent the employees, and
Absolutely.
How prevalent are unions in the video game industry right now. Because like if I'm building a building and I need laborers and I'm a contractor, I can go to the local union hall and say, hey, I need X amount of laborers for today or for this many months, years, whatever it is, and draw off the pool from the union. Yep. Whereas I don't think you guys really have that available to you at the moment, so that kind of puts
absolutely
spin on it as well.
Absolutely, that's what I mean by at the moment, though. But I feel like Hollywood, the way they do movies, I mean, that's exactly what happens, right? Yeah. You have everything's very unionized, and you go and ask for people, and you get them, and I think that I'm not saying it's definitely the way of the future, but I feel like it's something that the industry will be hoping to sort out and settle down a bit more on in the future, and that's definitely an opportunity there.
It would be great, considering how many people are always affected by these layoffs, and then you see them having to struggle to find a job and move their families and everything else like that too. If there was a little bit more control and sort of organization to it, it would help. But I mean, it's still a young industry, no matter what we say. You think about how far it's come in 30 years or whatever, but it's still young. So we'll get there. Let's move on to some happier news. We're going to move on right along to some holiday stuff with Guild Wars 2's Winter's Day event, which went live last night. I am an old man, and I went to bed before it went live. Did anybody have a chance to play it at all? I don't even know if Joel plays the Guild Wars 2. You can say it. Nobody will be listening.
No, no, of course I play. Yeah. Well, let's just say I play every MMO that comes out within a fairly large radius.
Yeah.
But I was planning to play more Guild Wars 2 this week, and I haven't actually logged in because I've been, let's just say a little bit busy on the TSW forums and the game there as well. So I haven't logged into Guild Wars 2 in a couple of weeks. So no, I haven't played Winter's Day yet.
How about you, Rob? Any chance yet? You were busy.
I logged in Guild Wars 2 yesterday, actually, but it was before the event kicked off, so I didn't really get to do anything Winter's Day-ish. I did participate in some other holiday events in different games, but nothing for Guild Wars 2 yesterday. They're all over the place.
We're going to get to a special holiday with Joel at the end. It's not really quite Christmas.
What I was really doing is I was making up union cards and mailing them out to developers.
To developers, you should actually lead the union. You'd be set.
No, it's not a good idea at all.
What I do like best about the Winter Day thing from Guild Wars 2 is that it only runs until the 20th, right?
I think it's actually till July or January 3rd. But I think his movement, it's all about Toymaker Tix, for those of you who didn't know, and he's essentially like the Asura Santa Claus, and he's flying from city to city, and then I think on the 20th he lands and stays in Lion's Arch for a couple weeks so that people that maybe didn't get to see him in their city can go see him there.
Okay, yeah. No, he only arrives in Lion Arch. Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, it's good at least because you'll see most of the full event up until the 20th, and I mean the world is going to end on the 21st, so it's good that they get most of it out of the way.
Yeah. That's my son's birthday, so I don't think that's actually going to happen. I'm a firm believer that the world's going to continue to go. But,
really?
Yeah, it's my son's 8th birthday. Hey, son!
On.
Congratulations, happy birthday! The fucking world's dead. Good job.
I mean, well,
you gotta break it.
I love that kind of optimism. I just, after
I spawned the herald of the world's end. I think actually that ArenaNet did a good job here with this event, and they learned a lesson that a lot of people were screaming about on some of the previous 2 events that they had, is that none of the things that you can do in the event will be a one-time only deal. Mm-hmm. So as long as you can get in during the event, you should be able to do.
You have 3 weeks to get there, and if you don't, then I mean, come on.
Then it's on you, but it's not like you're going to have an 8-hour window that started at noon Friday when the majority, because let's face it, MMOs as they mature, the player base has matured as well. Most of us aren't in college anymore. We have jobs, so
we
were probably at work at that time.
Yeah. But it's cool because he starts off, I think, in Grove, and then he moves on to the other cities. He's in Grove today, and then he hits every city, and he's in that city for 24 hours until he finally lands in Lion's Arch, and he's there for the until January 3rd. But what's cool is that in each city he has like another instance. You can go inside of his workshop, and you have to help fight off toys and stuff like that, and you get ingredients to make special toys and weapons and all that jazz. Now, if you miss him in the Grove today, you will be able to get him. You'll be able to do that Grove instance once he's in Lion's Arch. It'll have like a UI that'll let you pick which cities you want. So again, showing that ArenaNet's kind of learned from their previous mistake is that once you get him to Lion's Arch for that last 2.5 weeks or whatever, you'll be able to do everything that was a one-time only event at Lion's Arch. So it's really not a problem. I don't think. Anybody else think so?
No, it's good. It's
smart.
Exactly. It lets people see what they can see.
But then again, the world ends anyway, right? So.
I mean, like, if you don't get in before the 21st, it's probably, you know. I'm sorry for your son. I really am. It's a horrible, horrible
it's
situation.
Very terrible. Make it a really good birthday, but just celebrate it on the 20th, Rob.
Well, I'm actually going to give him Skylanders Giants today.
Good.
So that way he has a week to get it in before, you know,
before
we're all space dust.
Yeah. It's okay, you know, and this is the one time that I wish I was Jewish so that I could have already be celebrating my holiday, but oh well. I'll be missing Christmas this year. Moving right along from Winter's Day to something back. We go from sad to happy to sad with the Darkfall Unholy Wars delay that caused a massive stir in the Darkfall community this week. Now, here's the.
See, I don't take this as sad.
Okay,
I guess I have a different spin on it than you do.
Same here. No, it's not sad to me. It was sad to other people. So let me sort of paraphrase what happened. Essentially, the game was supposed to come out on the 12th, and on the 11th, which was poor Tassos Flamboris's his birthday, they had to, at the last minute, announce that it was going to be delayed, that it's not coming out until probably 2013, but something that they weren't able to do with the first Darkfall, and something that they now have the ability to do, they're actually going to be beta testing it, and all pre-order customers will be part of that beta test. It's going to be on Steam Greenlight. It's just, I don't know, to me it seems like an MMO that doesn't release with beta testing doesn't really have a great chance, and while people can be pissed that the game's not out now, it makes much more sense for it to go through that extensive testing and get player feedback before it's launched for the whole wide world and disappoints everybody, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I can say. I'm a game developer who's worked on games that have been delayed multiple times over the years, so there's no way I can make any comment about another developer delaying their game. It happens. There's tons of reasons for it every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a consumer, I would rather see the game get properly tested and delayed in its release than to them meet a business objective that, you know, is going to, in my opinion, hurt people's perception of the game. Yeah. One of the reasons I never played the original Darkfall was because all the feedback I received from everybody else about how buggy it was, and you could take your ships out of the water and fly them through the air. I mean, this isn't Final Fantasy. I don't want airships.
Yeah.
You know, if I got a boat, I want it to, you know, do what it does and go in the water. I don't want a bugged out game.
I'm watching the video right now, and it's just awesome watching this elementalist float himself down while the other guy died off a cliff. Anyway.
Yeah. So I want to see a game that's as polished as could be, I guess, or at least functions the way it's intended to, as opposed to a buggy mess. Because I think in the long run, you know, if you get early adopters and you don't have the support and you have a bunch of bugs, you're just going to chase more people off than you do by delaying it. And heck, even look at the delay, it's helping build the hype for the game. So it could probably, in the end, do nothing but help them.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think it's.
Go ahead, Joel.
I was just going to say, I think it's really important, especially with an open world PvP game, because one thing I've learned over the years is that PvPers like to find ways to exploit and win.
Yes.
And so in terms of ensuring that that's like as nailed down as possible before launch, I think it's really important. You know, we've just gone through this in the patch cycle for TSW, that 1.4 looked really nice on paper. Played really well on the tests on the test server, and then when it went live, there was certain elements that just didn't work out, and the player base was screaming for it, and we fixed it now. But it's those sort of things that you get blindsided by, and you
can't plan for it. And you know, I think one of the things that the Darkfall forum or the Darkfall fans had a problem with is that it was communicated at the last minute, and it is what it is, I guess. At that point, I think they were trying their hardest to make sure that they could get it out, and they finally had to pull the trigger and say no, this will make more sense. And as much as it sucks that they now have to wait a little bit, at least if you're already a pre-order, you can help out with the beta and, you know, maybe learn some of those tricks and things like that and get ahead of the folks that will be there on launch day. So
absolutely. Do they have a pre-order for it? I thought it was just previous customers.
Live as of yesterday. So
okay.
Now
awesome.
It's previous customers can get it for just the cost of the sub. So basically they'll be paying $15 to get into the beta, and then people that weren't customers at all before can get the pre-order for $30, which gets us into the beta. And I don't think they're going to be having like a typical beta where they, let you apply and then get selected. I think it's only for pre-order customers. I think their goal is to only get people that want to be in the beta to be in the beta. So
that's cool. I played the original for a while, so I have an account there. So
there you go. $15 will get you in there to see if you can do what this Elementalist is doing. It's amazing to watch this video when he's floating down and the other poor bastard just died at a dark, terrible death. Anyway, so moving right along, we're going to come up to Defiance, actually, with the first ever gameplay footage revealed. See, and Rob has his Defiance card, his place card. He went and saw Defiance up in, what was that, Toronto?
Toronto, yes.
Yeah. So we're watching this footage right now, and it's going to play on an infinite loop. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, Defiance is from Tryon Worlds, and it is in partnership with Sci-Fi Channel, and there's going to be a TV show airing in April, like a sci-fi post-apocalyptic alien invasion show. That'll take place in San Francisco. Is that? No, St. Louis. St. Louis.
The show's in St. Louis, and the game's in San Francisco.
Yeah. And so it's a San Francisco? No
Francisco.
You left your heart in San Francisco? Is that?
No, I actually live in St. Louis. I'm in St. Louis right now.
Yeah. Why'd you tell people where you live? That's terrible.
I don't know. The end of the world is coming.
I am not.
And it coincides with this game. Sorry.
But that's okay. So it's an MMO third-person shooter with big open-world PvP, PvP matches, open-world PvP. It has also a ton of PvE. You don't have to partake in the open-world PvP. Essentially, it even has... Yeah, it even has... if you think about it, it has these invasions from aliens that are very much like the rifts that we see in Rift, and it's obvious because they're using a similar engine, if not the same engine, I think, that they used for Rift. But it looks fantastic. I've seen the video. I've played it a few times at shows. Rob, you probably have a little more extensive knowledge of it, getting the hands-on up there. What do you say?
I'm really excited for it. It wasn't something that I was too excited for before I actually got a chance to play. I don't know if it's a game that I could make like my primary game that I like, my go-to game, but it's definitely something that I could spend a few hours just kind of getting lost in and going around. There's some interesting and unique things. I know you call this a third-person shooter, but something they want to do is try and get a first-person perspective in it as well. Mm-hmm. So they wanted to go more with just like the tagline MMO shooter. And as you just saw in the video, there's a type of gun that you can shoot at people that infects them. So like you shoot them with syringes, and then they get these big, large
alien
pustulates, and they die. But the best thing about when they die is essentially that they have an AOE. That's these big like slugs that come flying off them and
they
damage everybody around them. Yeah,
there's like little spider bugs that then come off and run around and chase people. When I was in I think it was like PAX Prime, I was playing it, and that was the only gun I kept using. They're like, you should try the shotgun. I'm like, why? I have this gun. I don't need another gun.
It's like, this is the only one I'm going to ever use. Yeah. This is the best idea ever.
But it's a lot of fun, and I don't know. I think it's interesting to see that we're going to have these sort of this open world like shooter MMO phenomenon now. I mean, you have PlanetSide 2 with the sort of PvP oriented like constant PvP struggle, and then you have Firefall coming out, which is a bit similar to Defiance in that it's a PvP oriented game with some PvP stuff on the side. And I don't know. I wonder if Joel can give us some insight. Do you think there's a reason why so many companies are focusing on shooters as the next MMO trend?
Actually, I don't really know. I
know.
Honestly, I haven't thought that much about it. I think it's just like natural for people to want to sort of create bigger virtual worlds for people to do different things in, and I think the pace of broadband and so forth has caught up to people being able to do that without too much problem. So I think people like shooters, and they always have since Doom came out. So I don't think it's really a problem now for them to make them multiplayer in a way that works very well. Mm-hmm. So, but I feel like if you look at the other end of the spectrum, you look at Battlefield. I mean, they're approaching MMO style size as well for the number of players that they can fit on a map, and they offer level up systems as well. So I mean, I think the line is just starting to get more and more blurred.
Absolutely. What were you going to say, Rob?
We all talk about, I guess, WoW would be the behemoth of the MMO world as far as in the peak of 12 million concurrent subscribers.
Still the behemoth, really.
Yeah. So how many copies of the most recent Black Ops were sold?
True.
Good point. And guess who makes that?
Yeah, Activision. But here, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that even you have the one aberration, which would be WoW, that's reached the 12 million concurrent, but nothing else in the MMO space has reached that many, subscribers or box sales or whatever. Yet you have shooter after shooter come out and just they far eclipse that many in sales and the amount of money they make. So I think it's a good business decision to try and say, hey, why don't we try and get some of these guys that like these shooters over here? And Joel's right. There's a lot of elements in shooters that are mimicking what you already see in MMOs as far as character progression and unlocks and different things like that. So I think it's natural, and I also think it's a great business decision to try to reach out to this additional audience that our market share that they're not already getting.
And here's the bright side about Defiance is, for all intents and purposes, it's on every single console that matters right now. The only thing it's not going to be out on, at least at launch, is the Wii U.
Correct.
It's not cross-platform. You couldn't play with people on the Xbox 360 while you're playing on the PC, but it will be on the PC, the 360, and the PS3. And the only thing I would be concerned about is the next development cycle is coming up soon, when we would see the next version of the Xbox 360 and the next version of the PS3. And as long as those are backwards compatible, I think Tryon could potentially have a massive cash cow on their hands. I don't know. It depends also if it's subscription based or not, but we'll find that out soon. I'm sure it's only 4 more months until launch. 5 more?
It's April. It's supposed to come out concurrently with the TV show. And one thing I would like to point out about the whole cross-platform versus multi-platform thing, it's not a technology issue and it's not a developer issue. It's a first provider issue. It's Microsoft. Microsoft does not want Xbox Live and the PlayStation Network software to mingle.
I think of it as a good thing, because I wouldn't as a PC gamer, or I should say, if I was an Xbox 360 gamer, I wouldn't want to play with PC gamers because they're going to have technically an unfair advantage with the mouse as opposed to a controller, no matter who you are.
Well, you could do a mouse and a keyboard on an Xbox 360 anyways.
I don't think it's going to be supporting that, though, or they haven't announced it. I know that Dust 514, or is that right? Yeah, 514 actually supports the mouse and keyboard, but I don't think Defiance is going to. It'd be sweet if it would. I'd play it on my big screen then. But moving right along, again, thank you for Defiance info. I just want to watch that guy shoot people again. Anyway. Alright, moving right along. We go from Defiance to the Asheron's Call 2 Megaton announcement that, well, I guess it's not a Megaton. It is for us MMO nerds, because Asheron's Call 2 was a phenomenal sandbox that was canceled way ahead of its time. This past week on Thursday, out of nowhere, Turbine gave everybody a little Christmas present and said, hey, we're turning the servers back on. We got it to work with our current infrastructure. Here you go. So it's back on, and if you have an active Asheron's Call sub, you can play the what they're calling the beta for Asheron's Call 2. And I know Rob spent some time with it last night. So what do you think, Rob?
I was very excited to play the game. It had been, I want to say 2003, maybe, since I played it last. I didn't get to play it a ton when it was out to begin with. At that time, I was more in like a Dark Age of Camelot phase. So sorry, Turbine.
You're still in a Dark Age of Camelot phase.
At least a couple times a month. It's really great to get back to some of these games and see where these systems were starting to be developed from that we see today. But it's nice sometimes to go up to an NPC and click on it and get a quest and there not be the exclamation point or the question mark, or where you go around and you have to figure out where to get to. Like you notice on the map down there that there are some points of interest and stuff like that, but there's not really a big glowing oval that says, hey, this is where you got to go do the quest. It's like, okay, let me find the cave that I have to go to. All right, now let me figure out how to get down there, because there are certain paths, but this cave that you had to get to, it wasn't on the path. You had to go find your way to get there, and there are, elite, type mobs that are higher level than you that need a group to fight to get into just to complete a quest. So, it forces you to kind of get that group play. There's all these kind of interesting things to see what are starting to reappear in modern MMOs, kind of like open tapping. You know, we've got some games here lately. They're like, oh, we're gonna
let people kill the same mob and get
and give them all credit for it. It's like, oh, we used to be able to do that to begin with, but then you figured out it was exploiting when people were power leveling that way. But you know, it's cool to see these things come back in favor again, and you know, and see that, and it's also people who love Origin servers, like, oh, I wish this game had an Origin server, you know, so, or we could do it all over again. Well, guess what? Here's your Asheron's Call 2 Origin server. Have fun.
Yep. They just give it out. Now, their announcement basically said, because we were going to have an interview with them, but they're like, you know what, we're getting too many requests. Here's our blanket statement. They just said, we've had people on the Asheron's Call forums wishing for it. We finally had the ability to do it on our server architecture, and so we're turning it back on. Do you think that there, you know, it's time to speculate and rumor monger, is there a reason that Turbine would be doing this now? Do you think that Asheron's Call might be coming back as an IP, or do you think that they're testing the waters for a certain type of sandbox with Turbine? Because we know they're working on something, we just don't know what it is.
I have no idea. I think that I think it's a good move no matter what. I mean, regardless, it's positive news, and people always take that the right way. I think if you, I mean, I don't know Turbine's situation exactly, but like, imagine that they have lost some players from DDO and Lord of the Rings, and they have an extra capacity server-wise, because you often pay for servers in a bunch, right? You sign a contract that says these servers for the next 10 years. Right, and then you suddenly start to have more space, and you're like, well, what can we use those empty servers for? You know what? Let's bring back AC2. I mean, I think that's a clever business decision, and you know, an absolutely legitimate way to use your extra space. I don't know if that's the case, but it's only win-win for players, really.
Absolutely.
I can tell you they got my $12.95.
Yeah, you immediately subscribed again, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I think they're doing something, and I don't think they brought Ken, you know, over
Rolston.
For no reason. Rolston from I guess he was with Big Huge Games, started 38 Studios, and previous to that he was
and everything.
Exactly. So you've got the guy that is responsible for our Elder Scrolls 3 and 4 essentially.
Yeah, some of the best sandbox single player RPGs you'll ever play.
Exactly. So and other than the announcement that they brought him on, and a few other people, which you know were important in their own right, but I can't really remember who they were off the top of my head. And you haven't said anything since then. It's like, hey, we brought these guys on. Now what are we doing with them?
Something. Now,
yeah. So
all I can say about Ken is never, when you talk to him, if you talk to him, never bring up the fact that Reckoning's characters couldn't jump. He hates that. He hates that. And to me, that was like the worst thing about that game. Everything else about it I loved. I even liked the sort of MMO questing in the single-player RPG, but I hated the fact that my character was bound to the ground. But still, I agree, Rob. I think that there's something going on right here.
What about Project Copernicus? Could they have picked that up and been working on it?
Exactly.
Well, I don't know. I think the IP hasn't been auctioned off yet.
Oh, really? But could they bought the tools?
Well, I don't think that's what I'm saying. I don't think any of the software that they were working on has been sold yet. I think it was mostly just their physical assets that got auctioned off.
Really?
I haven't seen that anybody was able to buy the tools or the IP yet.
I'm curious. I think they, you know, there's long been a rumor that they've had the IP for Harry Potter because it's Warner Brothers and everything like that. I don't think that's what they'd be working on, but wouldn't it be something to see a Harry Potter MMO that's like a sandbox designed by Ken Rolston?
Oof. I don't know if that's all those disparate elements. I don't know.
Yeah, let's throw that together and see what happens.
I'm going to say this because we have a Funcom person on here. Let's see a Lego sandbox MMO
I wonder who's
come out.
making that.
I have no idea who owns the rights to Lego's MMO Funcom.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't expect. I can say that I've played the Lego stuff we're working on. It's coming along very well, but I wouldn't expect it to be a super sandbox.
Oh, okay.
It's not Lego Universe. Keep in mind that already exists.
Yeah, not anymore.
That's gone.
No, well,
they shuttered that one.
Can I ask you? Will it be like Lego Universe, or will it be something entirely different?
It's a very different concept.
Good.
It's very cool. I'm sure that marketing and so forth are probably cringing right now if they're listening because I'm even mentioning. But at least
Erling doing right now.
Yeah, well, he had me on Skype half an hour ago and gave me like, "God, don't say this," and you know, don't be don't be rude about Trion's layoffs and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, as if I'm going to be. As if
I'm going to rub the salt in the wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, no. I think, the Lego stuff that I've seen, I think the team is a lot of really competent guys. It's a lot of guys who got put off in the layoffs for TSW, and then they were brought back on Lego.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so it's a lot of the veterans as well, and so they're really, really good, and they're pumping out stuff at an amazing rate as well. I'm really impressed with it. So, it'll be interesting to see how people like it when it starts getting talked about a little more.
Yeah, that's actually fantastic news, because when we talked to Craig at PAX Prime, he said these are temporarily going to be able to bring them back on, and nobody believed him. So I feel like you guys should have made a huge deal about the fact that, like, hey, all those people that we had to lay off for a little while, they're back.
Yeah, I think at least in Oslo, almost all of the, like, it's 95% of the people who got laid off are back. It's only Montreal where the biggest effect is still. I mean,
I know one person from Montreal that's still. I don't think she's back with Funcom.
Oh.
We need unions. We were just saying it.
It happens. Yeah. It happens even when you got unions. So for those that are asking, which those that are watching later on, I posted a link to the Funcom press release where they talked about how they're developing a MMO based off the Legos IP. Oh, yeah. And I think it's going to be focused on like the minifigures, but
yeah,
I don't want Joel.
When did that news came out in like spring or something like that?
June.
June.
Is when the official press release, as far as I think the concept of the game, but I think about the IP being acquired was probably like April.
Yeah.
No.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah. But, exactly. There was a lot of focus on getting TSW finished first before we would really put much on the Lego thing. So, but it's coming along really nicely, and I Lego as a company, I think they really have their shit together when it comes to like their IPs and their digital platform. They're a very, very intelligent company when it comes to stuff like that. I mean, just the fact that every piece of Lego that they cast, they make a 3D model of.
Yes. And now I have something to ask you, and you probably can't answer it, but will you guys have access to the other IPs that Lego has access to?
We have access to a shared pool of assets from Lego, I think, that Lego create.
This is my face.
Hero Factory, what's up?
But
Ninjutsu.
Moving right along.
Or Ninjago, I guess.
Ninjago. I have a couple of little cousins that are always playing with Ninjago, and they're really like, I don't get it, but they love it. They just spin around and like break apart and hit each other. Anyway,
can I get a last word in on AC2 since we diverged?
Yeah,
we went divergent there. For those of you guys that are listening, AC2 was a very good combination of AC1's sandbox and starting to add in a lot of some theme park elements. So if you're looking for a game that sandboxy but has a little bit of the theme park to get you going, it's a good game to kind of take a look at. And we do have footage of it on our YouTube channel because Ripper uploaded some and I put some up from playing it, the introduction the other day.
Ripper's is his first impressions. They'll be live later this week, but I think Rob's is already up there and live right now. And then it really is it's a great game. It's one of the MMOs that I cut my teeth on actually back in the early 2000s, and you should check it out. Even though it's a little dated now, it's still one of the best out there. It's closed prematurely. But we're moving right along to something that Joel might have a few words to say about. The final news topic is that the Secret World has gone. I don't want to call it free to play because you can't just download it and play it right away. It's not like a Perfect World game, but it's buy to play, sort of similar to Guild Wars 2 in that you buy the client for I believe $29.99 now, and you'll have access to everything in the game. There's no need to subscribe to see the content, but there is an optional subscription which will get you some perks and bonuses. And well, basically, how about instead of me talking about it, we just let Joel tell everybody here what's going on with the Secret World's buy-to-play option.
Well, I mean, like, basically, I realize the world's going to end in a few days, and I just figured that, like, we should give everyone the opportunity to get in and have a chance to play it. Now, it's the idea for me, at least, from a game director perspective, is, and keep in mind that I'm not a business guy, so that's the first thing. For me, it's like I want people to play the game. I think the game deserves more players than it has. I wouldn't say that if I didn't believe in it. Hell, I wouldn't work on it if I didn't believe in it. I think the game has a lot of things, and I think it got overlooked, or I think it got lost a bit in A, Guild Wars 2, B, Mr. Pandaria, C, the subscription put people off. now I have the opportunity to sort of say to people, you know what, for $30 you can have a lot, like most of the game. You know, there's a huge chunk. We're giving away, you know, pretty much everything. We didn't want to create these tiers of difference between players. We wanted it to be like very simple. You buy it once and you get everything. And then, you know, in the future, of course, we'll add content, and that'll be DLCs that people need to buy. But like right now, yeah, if you pay $30, you get kind of the full TSW experience. And I think that is a great way to sort of bring people in and you know, rebuild our community as well. And our community is like the people who are there in Secret World and have been since the start are fantastic people. And they've, you know, there's a thread on our forums right now from like people who've been playing the game for 6 months in the newbie section, basically saying, please add me to your friends list and you can talk to me anytime in the game. And I mean, just that sort of stuff. I mean, it's a very welcoming and great community, and I really sort of want to do the best by the game for those people.
Now it's tell us a bit about there is still an optional subscription, sort of a membership you could buy, and what will that get players?
Yes, if you buy the optional membership, you get item of the month, subscriber item of the month. This month it's a Mayan headdress, but we'll be tweaking what that is as we go forward with different items of the month.
If you go forward, because the world is ending.
Well, you know, like of course, like if we don't actually die, then sure. Yeah. And then you get $10 worth of Funcom bonus points to spend in the in-game store, or it's 1,200 points is the exact amount of points. And then there's also the XP booster, as we call it. It's basically rested XP that you would get in another game.
And it's just constant?
No, it's 1 hour and a 16-hour cooldown. So you basically, every time you log in, you get double XP for an hour.
Use it when you go to a dungeon.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's just a bonus XP, and that's subscribers only. And then yeah, and that's kind of the perks for being a sub or a member, as we call them now. Subscription and membership have become the new terms. I don't know why membership is the new term, but that's the terminology marketing want us to use. So it's memberships now.
Because you could really end your it's not really a subscription, I guess, because you could end your membership and you're still playing the game. You can still do whatever you want. You're just not getting those perks every month anymore. And will the subscribers, or I should say the members, will they be getting the DLCs as well, or will those always be like a sort of a purchase piecemeal kind of deal?
Well, the idea was that we will charge the points for the DLCs, and then people get the free points, and they'll be able to use them to buy the DLCs. And kind of the reason we went in that direction, there was quite a lot of discussion, because you know there was like, do we just give them the DLCs and then give them a smaller amount of points? Mm-hmm. And the reason we didn't want to do that, and there's quite a fierce debate about whether we should have done that on the forums right now. People are sort of it's one way or another. It's an interesting discussion. But the reason we didn't want to is because if
I think we lost Joel.
Oh, he's back.
Okay, sorry. If I'm giving you $10 of points a month, and then every month I'm giving you like $5 of DLC, for example, and then I slide by a month, you don't lose your $10 of value, right?
Okay.
I fail to deliver 1 month, you don't lose that value. Whereas in a game where like you get the content for free, and I fail to deliver, then that month your subscription is actually worth less.
Yeah.
Because you didn't get the content that month, so all you got was your $5 of points.
So this way, no matter what, you're getting your $10 worth.
Right. That's the way I feel.
Save it or spend it or save it or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
I just got one question for clarification.
Mm-hmm.
If I bought the lifetime subscription beforehand, I will get the DLC for free, or I have to accumulate my points and pay for the DLC still?
You still get the points every month that you can use to buy the DLC.
As a lifetime member, you're still getting
gotcha.
1,200
We'll
points.
have a flag in the account page. Soon TM, I've talked to the billing guys about this, because this was something players on the forums requested. So we'll have a flag which basically says auto buy the DLC when it appears. So if you are a lifetime, you don't have to think about it, it just will happen. And you'll still have whatever's left in points.
Oh, that's cool. Now,
so that's kind of the deal.
I'm going to ask you something that I just have to do because Erling's probably watching. Do we know what maybe some of the first DLC might be? Huh?
Sorry?
Do we know what the first DLC might be?
Do
you have plans for it already?
Yeah, of course. The first DLC is we have been doing issues, right? We've been doing these monthly issues, and so issue 5 is coming out next week, and that is the Vanishing of Tyler Freeborn. And that contains like a story arc about this character called Tyler Freeborn, who's like this mad conspiracy nut who lives on Solomon Island, and you kind of follow this long chain of missions around him, and eventually you end up going into the fog surrounding Solomon Island. So it's kind of this very cool and interesting mission. If you buy the game in December, you get that for free. But if you don't buy the game in December, if you buy it in January, that is the first DLC for $5.
Okay.
If we're talking about the DLC that comes after that, yes, that's already in production, and it will be. I won't say much about it except that it's going to be very heavily Indiana Jones and Uncharted like, and it's set in the Egypt playfields.
I like that. I like the idea of an Indiana Jones themed DLC. Now I'm glad that I have my Lifetime account. But I mean, go ahead and tell us before we move on, because we got one more topic. I don't want to shortchange you since you well, I would say you woke up, but it's like 2 p.m. there. But since you joined us for the entire hour, what else do you want to let players know about the Secret World now that it's buy to play and play free forever, as long as the world doesn't end?
No, I think it's just for people to jump in and give it a chance. I think if you've been on the fence, or if subscription fees have scared you away, or if you feel like you maybe picked up some negative reviews early in the piece, is really a very low barrier to entry, and you get everything. I think it's fantastic value. I mean, if you think about a game like Borderlands, for example, where you pay the money and you get everything, and then you can buy DLCs, it's exactly the same sort of situation, except that with the Secret World vanilla based game, you'll get hundreds of hours of gameplay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're not treating anybody like second-class citizens. That's really the one thing I was fighting very hard for as game director. I don't want people in the game who are like, you get limited this and you get limited that, and you have to pay extra money for this. I don't want people to feel like they're playing the game and all the time being asked for, pay $5 here, pay $2 here, pay $3 here. I want people to feel like, I paid $30 and you respect me for me paying my $30, and now I get to play the game. And you won't be bothering me, sort of thing.
That's the killer part. As personally, this has nothing to do with the fact that Joel's here, because I will say it time and time again. We, as MMO gamers, we're always asking for people to try something, to make something, for developers to make something different and unique, and that's exactly what the Secret World is. It's something different and unique in a world full of also rans. If you haven't tried the Secret World now, I strongly urge you to get in there and do it. You don't have to worry about a subscription. You can play it for a couple hours a week, or a couple hours a day, or 5 to 10 hours a day, and you're going to have a ton of fun, as long as you understand the fact that this isn't like an MMO that you've played before. This isn't like World of Warcraft. This is something brave and uncharted, and I don't know, it's awesome, and I give it my full endorsement. And no, I don't have a check coming from Funcom.
We couldn't afford to pay you anyway, Bill. I hear you. Your going rate is really, really high. No,
yes.
I'm kidding.
Look at you should see the sweatpants I'm wearing and tell that I'm very expensive.
You've got pants on this week?
I do have pants on this week. You don't get to
that makes one of us.
Yeah.
I know that people need to check for sales too, and I put it out on our social media platforms yesterday that Amazon had a sale. You could get the Secret World for $15. Yep. I just went and checked. It's back up to $29.94, I think.
You had a one-day sale. You could have grabbed it for the price of a subscription.
I know. $15 for this game is theft.
Yeah.
I mean, I was telling people when it first came out that even if you were concerned about the subscription, that if you just bought the box for 1 month, it'll be the best 1 month MMO excursion you've had, because it's just so different from everything else that was out there. And I really enjoyed it. The fact that the subscription is gone, I'm probably going to end up playing this, not extensively, but getting some more game time in on this with a lot of people that I know want to come back, because
definitely when all the new content keeps coming out, it's like the perfect time to pick it up and play it to death, and then be like, all right, I'll come back again as soon as you get me more content.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's hard as a developer to give. I think it's hard to keep pace with players' expectations regarding content, and I think that a system where you sort of you pay when you play or as you play works really well for people. Like it's.
You don't feel like you're missing out either now that you don't have the sub fee. You buy the box and you play it for a little bit, and then you're like, you know what, I can't play it this week, and you don't play it.
But it's okay.
But you go back next month and you play it. If it's a subscription, you're like, man, why am I paying for this?
Yep.
And I'm only playing it a couple times a day, or a couple times a month.
I can name like a dozen games or more that are just like that. That I'm like, I would like to play this every once in a while, maybe a day here or there, but I'm not going to pay $15 just to pick it up for a day.
Exactly. And now you sit down and you're like, oh hey, you know, there's this new
this.
DLC. Let me get this DLC since I have time to play it now. I'll spend a couple $dollars and buy it.
I wonder how many of World of Warcraft subscriptions are people who like me. I have an active sub for World of Warcraft, and I've had it for 3 years, and I've played it like once a month, maybe for 3 years. But what I mostly use it for is development examples. Like when I'm trying to explain something to somebody, I'm like, you know, this is how they do a dungeon finder, right? And then I have to, the fact that I'm able to load up WoW on the spot and show people how it works, to me, that's what I'm paying for. I'm just
You're not playing it.
I'm not playing it. I'm using it to explain examples to people or show people how something will work. And I'm like, and this is what players generally expect because this is the baseline now. Sort of thing. So it's funny that I've been subbed to it for 3 years. I think my character's probably gone up 5 levels in that time.
I think there are probably a ton of people that do that. I know I, for one, actually I bought the annual pass right after BlizzCon was at 2011, and I for the Diablo thing, and plus I was playing it at the time. But I think out of that 12 months that I was subscribed to it, I played for a total of 1 month. You know?
Yeah.
It's just how it is.
Yeah.
But we're gonna keep this Secret World video playing because our last topic of the show is the community spotlight, which is all about, does voice acting make your MMO experience better? And as we know, and look, of course, Rob has to put the glasses on because that's what voice.
It's a spotlight.
Is. Yeah, it's so bright. It's so bright. There are a lot of MMOs these days that are coming out with voice acting as a key integral part, and Secret World is one of them. Star Wars: The Old Republic was another. There's even quite a bit of voice acting in Guild Wars 2 as another one that was recent. I believe there's going to be quite a bit in Defiance, judging by the video that we saw. My question is, or I should say the community's question is that something that's necessary? My personal opinion, and then I'll let you guys ramble on. My personal opinion is that yes, voice acting does improve the MMO experience just as much as good writing does. If a story is not interesting, if something that I'm being forced to listen to or read is not interesting, it doesn't matter if it's written or if it's voice acted. I'm probably going to skip through it either way. If, however, it is interesting and it's entertaining, if it's written, I'll read it. If it's voice acted, I'll definitely listen to it. So I think as long as the writing is strong, voice acting enhances that, and it makes you, I guess, more immersed. And it's fantastic in the Secret World. I actually really like it a lot in Star Wars, although there are some quests that it's just not necessary on. And I liked it in Guild Wars 2, and I guess what I'm saying is, yes, voice acting makes my MMO experience better. Gentlemen?
I think I'll let Joel take this one first, since he's directly involved with the game that has voice acting in it.
Yeah, well, of course, I feel like it definitely adds to the experience. I think bad voice acting detracts from the experience, though. I think that's a really important element to point out. You need to do it well. I think Star Wars does a great job of it. I think Guild Wars does a fairly good job, though I feel like sometimes it's a bit
hokey. Oh, Joel,
obviously
secret. There we go.
Sorry, I think my internet's probably fluctuating. I think Secret World's voice acting, yeah, I unbiasedly declare it the best MMO voice acting there is. I think thus far. But considering our budget, especially compared to a game like Tor, I think voice direction is really, really important. I think that's one of Ragnar's fantastic strengths, and you see it in every game he's ever made, is his voice direction. He's a great writer, but he's also very good at getting the most out of his actors. And I think that's also something really important. I think it enhances things, but I've like when we worked on Age of Conan, for example, I feel like Age of Conan is a perfect example of where doing voice acting is a very jarring thing and can be completely game breaking in places for people. Like I remember the reaction to Tortage being voiced and then nothing afterwards. And that was a huge deal for players. People really, really liked the voice on Tortage. It was done well. We had good voice direction again. We had good writing. And then post Tortage, there was still the same quality of writing. It was the same writers, but there was no voice.
Yep. And
you saw the backlash from players. And so I feel like it's really important to be consistent. If you're going to do voice, you need to do it all the way through, and you need to do it consistently. I think that's very important.
I agree.
I think that your character should never be voiced.
That could be true. Speaking of that, Secret World, right? Not voiced.
Yeah.
No.
You should. part of the immersion, I guess, and part of the role playing effect is, that's supposed to represent you. So why should a voice that has nothing to do with what you would perceive your own character as is all of a sudden speaking for you? I think this, as far as NPCs, it's kind of hit or miss for me. I think bad voice acting makes games worse, and there's a couple out there, and I'm not going to be so crass as to throw them under a bus. But I think The Secret World does a very good job. Andy is he's crazy. And for those of you guys that don't know, Andy is kind of like the messed up cop in
Kingsmith.
I want to say they're Kingsmith. I kept wanting to say Portsmouth. And Kingsmith. So he's up on the rooftop, right? And you're talking to him, and he's talking about his kittens in the past, and you feel bad for the guy, and he's got a disturbing childhood, and he's in a terrible situation, and the guy that did that voice did a really good job. And when I see him, I actually see like a twisted David Arquette, so if you took David Arquette's Andy from like Scream and made him a little bit slower than everybody else, but also made him a little darker than what his character was, that's what I see when I see him. And so I think you guys did a really great job. Now there's some other games, big name games, that had some voice acting that I'm just like, let me get the hell through this so I can get on my way, because
Spacebar.
Yeah, put the text up there so I can read it and figure out what's going on, because I don't want to listen to this anymore. It's just slowing me down. But yeah, so that's how I am with.
I think that's also really important to do with presentation. Is if people can read what's being said faster than it's being said, then often you'll just read it and then be waiting for the person to finish speaking.
Yeah.
And that's also an important point. I mean, it was one thing we discussed with TSW. Do we force people to watch all the cutscenes? And of course, the overwhelming response was no. You make it, push ESC and it's gone. Because if people want to, they will. I mean, there's absolutely nothing to stop them, but you need to allow people to decide their experience. I mean, that's,
That brings me to another point, is one thing I'd like to see in future MMOs that do voice acting is something a little more, I guess, and it's not always like this in the game, but in Skyrim, it has sort of ambient voice where not every conversation has you locked in with that person where you have to listen and respond. Sometimes it's just you're in your character, you have full control of that character, and the voice acting is happening around you or to you. And I kind of like that, because it doesn't take you out of the game. You don't have to escape or get past of it. It's just happening as a part of the story being presented to you. And meanwhile, you can still move around and turn your head and everything like that. And I like that.
I think. Sorry.
I was going to say the background chatter. I mean, that's great. You're walking through a town, and let's say that you hear it. Like if you got your headphones on that have more than just two stereo, you have multiple channels, and you're talking to one NPC or whatnot, and you hear a conversation slightly out of the back, and you go around and you see that there's somebody else over there talking about something and you go there, and that's a quest giver, and now you got a quest because you kind of overheard something. Not everybody plays with the sound on, but for those people that are really looking for a truly immersive experience and don't just want, the exclamation points above their NPCs' heads, that could be a great way to implement that, is through, background chatter like that.
If you pick it up, you can run over there and get it.
I think Bethesda tend to do a really good job in Skyrim and even Oblivion, even though I have my issues with Oblivion as a game. I feel like they've always done a very good job at what I call environmental storytelling. And Fallout as well, of course. But you stumble across something in the world, and it's a tape on a loop, or it's just something that's sort of sitting there, and it tells you a story without needing to be a character.
Yeah.
Sitting there giving you a mission, and giving you all this exposition. You stumble upon a piece of something, and it leads you to something greater. I like that sort of storytelling.
Like just a book that's there, and you're like, oh, what's this? And you're like, oh, holy crap. And then suddenly you have something new to go after. And another thing that I wanted to bring up before we end the show is the same topic, of course, is I wonder what games will suddenly, maybe one day, allow you to voice your character or act as your character. If you look at something like EverQuest 2 with its voice or facial recognition, and they're tying that to voice chat between players too, you think that's obviously way down the line. It could go to some point where suddenly your character in an MMO is voiced by you. It could be played by you, but I don't see it happening tomorrow. I don't think we're going to see it anytime soon. But what do you guys think about that? Do you think that full role-playing will actually happen one day?
I think that for role playing like that, I'm not sure the AI will be intelligent enough for a long time, because I think like if you just look at
what about a game with no NPCs?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, then of course it's fine. That's the question. We talked about this at Funcom, and there was a design on the table again. Something that I'm sure I'll get killed for talking about, but it's fine. There was a design on the table for a game where basically you had players whose class was basically they were bards. Their job was talking to other bards, collecting stories about the world, and then creating quests from those that they would craft and then pass on to other players as crafted missions.
Wow. Okay,
and that's
epic.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool. Like, so one guy goes out and kills, whatever the boss is, the dragon, and then he comes back, and a bard can, actually he talks to the guy who killed the dragon, and the guy who killed the dragon can give him, a buff. But the guy who killed the dragon had to be a warrior class, so he can't actually use that buff that he picked up until he passes it to a bard, and then the bard might pay him to get the exclusive rights to that piece of information. And then from then on, that bard can give out a quest about that. And, it could go to a storytelling place like a tavern and actually broadcast it to everybody in the tavern. Or they could, just give it out individually and sell it to people on the auction house, for example. And make those unique so that they can... I think there's absolutely that sort of dynamic storytelling will be the future of games. I think that's where things are going.
And
but
that puts the control of sort of content in players' hands then, and takes a little bit of stress off of developers to constantly have to churn out new content as well.
Yeah, I think there's that balance there, right? Because the designers still make the instance with the dragon in it, and therefore you guarantee that that's a good experience. What you don't have to do is like create all these NPCs that are giving out missions and make sure players are players. I guess you would say it's more that players get to decide their own flow of gameplay, which I think is a very interesting mechanic. You don't necessarily take away all the designer elements, because I feel like Neverwinter Nights 1 is a perfect example, and I guess Neverwinter the MMO is coming out soon, which will be interesting as well. Player created content tends to be hit and miss one way or another. I'd say the original Neverwinter Nights had something like 10,000, 20,000 modules, of which maybe 100 were worth playing.
Yeah.
And so you have to be very careful when you give players toolkits to create a lot of content for other players, because it might become about finding the diamond in the rough, and that's not necessarily the experience you want to give people either.
No, you're right, and I think
rating systems, player rating systems, can kind of help curb that too. Like if I play it and it's terrible, I don't have to sit here and write a big long explanation on why it sucked. I can just give it a down vote and go about my way.
Absolutely, but of course then you have problems with I have 50 friends and they're going to support my crap module regardless of whether
that's true too.
Yep.
There's always those social dynamic elements
no matter what. Think of Reddit. Reddit is a perfect example. Why is this up on the top of Reddit again?
Don't start me on Reddit.
But anyway, that about pulls us to a close, folks. I want to thank you all for joining us this early Saturday morning for MMOFTW Live. Once again, I'm Bill Murphy, and that's Rob Graculin Lashley down there with the awesome Zelda shirt. And of course, thank you, Joel Bylos of The Secret World, for joining us.
No worries. I'm just going to give a big shout out to Arling, who is watching right now.
Oh, he's watching. Hi, Erling. Hi. I've talked with Erling like 5 million times by email trying to set up content and stuff like that, and I've only ever met the man once. But one of these days, we're actually going to have a beer together, Erling.
He's a gem. He's an absolute gem.
But again, thank you.
A ruby or a diamond?
A ruby. I think he's a ruby. Erling's a ruby.
Maybe garnet.
He's an amethyst. But thank you, Joel, for stopping by. Really appreciate it, and best of luck to the new version of The Secret World. I actually think you guys are really on the right track, judging by the Steam sales this past week too. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, let's hope people. I mean, again, I'm not a sales guy. I hope people who play the game now really enjoy it and feel like it's their $30 worth, and will stay around and help make the community even better. That's my overall goal with this. So.
I bet you can do it. That's my guess.
Cheers.
All right, guys. Bye. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Bye.